Hello everyone, welcome to the continuation of the studies of the Spirit's book. We start our meeting today with a message from the book Opening Doors Within by Allan Kardec. Many souls are seeking an answer to all the chaos and confusion in the world at this time. Day by day it grows worse. But be not afraid, for things will have to get worse before they can get better. A boil comes to a bed before it bursts, and then all the poisons are released and are cleared away. Things have to come to the head in the worst before the poison of hate, greed, jealousy, and selfishness are released and healing can take place. I need you at perfect peace within. You will find it as you keep your mind stayed on mine and can raise your consciousness, seeing only the very best. You cannot help the world situation if you allow yourself to become involved in it. You have to be immune to the disease, or you too will contract it, and then you can be of no help whatsoever. I need your help. I need you free. I need you at perfect peace. Then I can use you. And as we are about to start this meeting today, all of us present in this ambient, prepared by those who anticipated us, the Enlightened Spirits, the Spiritist benefactors, those beings who love every one of us, who are here helping us to expand our consciousness in relation to the natural laws in the universe, helping us to understand that God is the Father and loving Father of everyone, who constantly and insistently is inviting us to learn to love ourselves, to love others, to love life, to love every being, every creature in the universe. We ask the permissions for the Enlightened Spirits for us to start this meeting under the blessings of their peace and light and love, and starting to position ourselves as learners of ourselves as we all are, starting expressing our gratitude towards everything and everyone in our existence, understanding that we are all brothers and sisters in humanity, children of God, created with love in order for us to learn to love. May the peace of Jesus follow upon each and every one of us. May your tenderness embrace and involve us all. And united in your name, we start our study today. So be it. May we all feel welcome as we carry on our studies today of the Spirit's book. As we finished previously before the Christmas break, we are in the chapter Hopes and Consolations. Hopes and consolations, and within that is studying about future joys and sorrows. Future joys and sorrows reminds us as immortal beings, as we all are, as spirits who are evolving throughout many different existences, although we have one life. We are within the subtitle, The Nature of Future Joys and Sorrows. Future joys and sorrows reminds us the law of cause and effect, but ever how we use our free will at the present, that brings consequences in our destinies. The consequences could be joyful or sorrowful. It depends if our choices in our learning process are in accordance with the natural laws in the universe, then what awaits us in the future are joys. But as learners, if we choose through our ignorance or through our lack of understanding or even through our pride and selfishness to go against the flow of the natural laws in life, then as learners we will attract different experiences which may be temporarily painful and be challenging for us to learn in a different way, understanding that we can learn in two different ways. Towards the invitation of love, or if we choose to refuse love, learning through love, we will attract the methodology of pain, which is also a methodology of evolution. Well, we finished on our last meeting, the question 971 and 71A. And today we carry on the question of the Spirit's book 972. The 971, just for us to remind ourselves where we finished was, is the influence exerted by spirits over one another always good? So we reflected previously regarding the question, if we influence each other, is that always in a good way? And if spirit's influence is both related to incarnate and disincarnates. And we know through the learnings of the teachings of the Enlightened Spirits that is not always so. It depends, and it depends on what? On our intentions, on our motivations. If our hearts are already more humble, more fraternal, then our influence probably will be in a good and a better way. But if we still are more on the opposite way as learners, we may consciously or unconsciously influence others in a negative way. So it's important that we learn to become independent mentally and emotionally, so that when we live in a social reality, which is natural, normal to all of us, since our family setting, that we may learn to select, to discern what is good and what is not in relation to God's laws. And in that way, we may not feel affected or influenced by other minds who still are learning as we are, but may not have the understanding as we already achieved. And the question 971a says, so death does not deliver us from temptation? We do understand within Spiritism there is no death. We are immortal beings. We free ourselves from the physical body sooner or later through a disease or not, because it is a natural law for us to disincarnate, to free ourselves from the body. But spiritually, which is our essence, we don't die. We carry on alive without the physical body, but with the spiritual body, carry on learning to love. So when we free ourselves from the physical reality, all temptations, which are always based on the psychological and emotional dimension of ourselves, will not cease, will not stop. We free ourselves from the physical body, but carry on exactly how our tendencies in the physical body are, or desires, or wills, or likes or dislikes. So it's very important to get to know ourselves, as we are all working towards our own destiny, towards the journey of self-fulfillment, self-realization, and therefore conquering real happiness in the universe. Now we carry on with the question 972, which says, in what way do bad spirits tempt others spirits, since they cannot count on the passions to help them? It's very important to explore this question. In what way do bad spirits tempt other spirits, since they cannot count on the passions to help them? Let's imagine how can spirits who are free from the physical body influence us who are in the physical body. Let's see what we learn by the enlightened beings. They say, although the passions no longer exist in the material sense, they still exist mentally in little evolved spirits. If we explore this part here for us to develop our reasoning, although the passions no longer exist in the material sense, which means on the physical level, they still exist mentally in little evolved spirit. In little evolved spirits means that we are called our attention towards the scale of evolution. Although we all have been created simple and ignorant in the world by God, we used our free will so far in different levels, in different ways. Those of us who are constantly engaging in promoting ourselves to transcend our negativity or on shadows, we are enlightening our consciousness, our minds, our hearts. And those less evolved may still be very attached to the sensorial experiences, to the material reality. Therefore, their spiritual body may be quite dense, quite gross. And in that way, once we free ourselves from the physical level, those who are out of the physical level may have greater access on our psychological and emotional tendencies, which may be more or less similar. So we can learn to become independent if we join the journey, the invitation of self-realization through humbleness, through responsibility, and choose constantly to overcome our own limitations, take responsibility for ourselves, and understanding responsibility as internal autonomy of making wiser choices in life, where we are and with who we are. Bear in mind that only what helps us to center, to balance, and also to make ourselves immune in relation to the negative influences is when we choose to become better beings. When we choose to develop the goodness which is good for everyone and everywhere. And in that way, carry on is still the answer of the enlightened spirits. They carry on by saying, they lure their victims to places where they can witness the spectacle of those passions and everything that arouses them. So here is still within the question, in what way do bad spirits tempt other spirits, since they cannot count on the passions to help them? They will guide us mentally. That is where we need to be vigilant and conscious of what we are thinking on a daily basis. So if we have negative belief systems or belief systems who are inviting us or driving us towards the inferior passions, then we probably are not alone. We may be guided by other spirits, bad ones, who don't want us to see, guiding and walking towards a pathway of light. But bear in mind, which is very important, they only influence us with our own permission. If we sustain ourselves within the laws of love and goodness and put effort into to train ourselves on a daily basis, as we are not perfect, but we are putting efforts into in training our perfectibility, we become more immune. We become stronger from within, and therefore less vulnerable in terms of being affected or influenced by other brothers and sisters in humanity, spirits, who still may be more primitive than us, understanding that primitiveness is a temporary experience. As we all are under the law of progress, we are all evolving. If we are conscious of that or not, if we believe in that or not, we are all evolving, which is very hopeful, so much so that the chapter which we are reflecting on is hopes and consolations. So we always find hope in facing challenging moments and learning to be loyal to ourselves, learning to be sincere, testifying experiences according to the laws of progress, the laws of evolution. Understanding that we are never alone. We are always supported by spirits, preferable through our own choices, by the good beings, by those who are willing to help us to evolve, to progress, and to become better today than yesterday, and improve even further so that tomorrow we are better than today. Understanding again the importance of our inner free will. We always can choose which kind of thought, which kind of mental reference we will feed ourselves with. And also, even if we are feeling very strongly in a negative way on the mental level towards inferior passion, we still have the choice not to walk towards that, to sustain ourselves within the laws of goodness that we are willing now to develop. So in that way, in what way do bad spirits tempt other spirits since they cannot count on the passions to help them? As we went through here, is mainly through our belief systems, also through our emotions, or also through our tendencies. And we as immortal beings, as spirits, essentially psychological and emotional beings, we bring the internal power, the internal freedom to always resist any inferior passion that we still may bring within, as long as we choose to do that. Also engaging in prayer on a daily basis, so ask for help for the enlightened beings, that they may help us to overcome our inferior passions, that immediately also connects us with the good spirits, and which help us to strengthen in the new position, in the new resolution which we choose to for ourselves. And in that way, we carry on now on the question 972a, which says, but what end do those passions serve, since they no longer have any real object? It's very important, this question, when we follow the previous ones. And then the enlightened spirits say, that is precisely what comprises their torture. Miseries, see gold, that they cannot possess, debauches, see orgies, that they cannot take part in, the happily see the honors that they envy, but which they cannot enjoy. So here, Allan Kardec extended another question in relation, how can bad spirits or spirits who are our brothers and sisters in evolution, but in a different degree of understanding life and themselves, how can they influence others who are no longer in the physical body? And how do they feel if they cannot serve those passions? And then we see if we have our own tendencies on the inferior level, once we are free of the physical body, we may feel very disturbed in not being able to satisfy them. For us who are in the physical body, it's important that we may choose to overcome them. So when we are out of the physical body, we may deal with less internal conflicts, because we already are reharmonizing ourselves towards the center and the balanced level. Also reinforcing or strengthening our belief systems in relation to our ability to position ourselves against the inner tendencies which do not suit us anymore in relation to what we are in. Inferior tendencies or inferior passions may be on the sexual level, because we are here to learn, to direct, to educate our sexual force towards the sacred goals, learning to use it in a loving, humble way. Understanding to promote our sexual energy is to learn to promote our emotional dimension. We can also have a different torture that we find ourselves in relation to any kind of imbalances that torture ourselves, that compromise our well-being. Envy, as the enlightened spirits say here as well, also is a torture if we don't free ourselves from. So there are different examples that we go through. And now as we carry on, is still in the subtitle, The Nature of Future Joys and Sorrows, as we start the study today. Future reminds us as immortal beings, and joys and sorrows reminds us as the choices that we choose in the present. The right or correct or the good choices that we make today brings future joys. The future could be in this existence or in future existences. And sorrows, the opposite. Now the question 973 says, what are the greatest sufferings bad spirits have to endure? We are reflecting here about bad spirits, understanding bad spirits as spirits who are our brothers and sisters in humanity, who still are very primitive, who still choose hate or vengeance or the inferior passions that were part in the evolution pathway but are no longer in this state currently. So, going through here, we learn by the enlightened spirits which say, what are the greatest sufferings? So there are many sufferings, but the greatest one. It is utterly impossible to describe the mental tortures that are the punishment for some crimes. Why? We could ask, why is that for us impossible to describe? Because we cannot understand fully which level of torture on the mental level the spirit may experience if commits any crime. Why is that? If we depart that God is love, created us all with love in order to learn to love, so why would we go through temporarily of those mental tortures? That is merely because God's laws, the natural laws in the universe, we bring within, and any movement against that, we feel the consequences of that. Punishment, I would reiterate this word by saying, through the conflicts that we will emerge from our unconscious mind sooner or later to eventual crimes that we commit, we will attract naturally experiences for us to re-educate ourselves towards what is good for us, which brings joy. So it's not punishment in a sense that God is bad and punishes us. God is love, but our own consciousness asks for different experiences to go through in order to learn to value ourselves as immortal beings, to respect ourselves as immortal beings, to respect others in life, and to respect life in itself. And then if you carry on, the spirits continue. The actual spirits who suffer them find it difficult to give you an idea of them. But assuredly, the most frightful is the thought of being condemned forever. So we learn here the actual spirits will suffer more. Quite often when we work mediumistically and we receive and talk with spirits who are in this condition, we always find when they become aware of the situation, that is precisely what the enlightened spirits are saying here. That is very frightened, and depending on the belief systems that they bring from previous experiences, what they learned so far. For example, you will burn forever in the hell, that is quite frightening, quite scary. And they may feel that they are condemned now forever. For us, within the school of Spiritism, that does not exist. Life is not in that way. The part that God is love, then when we will become aware of the wrongs that we did, life, God, the good spirits, those who love us, will help us to engage in new proposals that we learn to do things differently. We all are evolving, therefore there is not such experience that we will be condemned forever. Is that making sense? Anything to add? No? So we still carry on the question 973. And the spirits say, people's idea about the joys and sorrows of the soul after death is more accurate or less accurate according to their state of intelligence. If you stop here just to reflect this part, that is easy to understand why people in different religions, doesn't matter in which spiritual pathway, the different understanding is merely referring to the different levels of intelligence, or in other words, of knowledge of what we learned as immortal beings. If we stayed more in a spiritual pathway who were teaching that once you die and you are wrong, you committed a crime or you killed someone, you will always suffer forever, we may bring that with us, but we will actualize ourselves gradually, as no one will forever stay with belief systems that are limited and against the natural laws of the universe. That is quite consoling and quite hopeful. Even if we who are now as spirits here present without a physical body committed a crime, there is no reason for us to blame ourselves, to feel guilty, or to disturb ourselves. It's only to accept what we did as learners, understanding that from now onwards we will not do it anymore, and listen to the dear ones who are around us. They are helping us to promote us in different learnings. And then carry on. As they become more evolved, their thinking also becomes more refined and more divested of materiality. As we just were discussing here, as more as we evolve, and we all will evolve, we never stay static forever. We will change our thinking. We will assimilate new ideas, new concepts, and also we will choose to dematerialize ourselves, not understanding the experiences from a physical level only. For instance, crime, as was mentioned here. If I, in the past, choose to kill someone because my ignorance was such that I thought that killing the body, I will kill someone. Now, as I'm evolving, we realize that no one can kill anyone because we are not a physical body. And now I understand that in my evolving process, I'm invited to learn to respect myself and respect others. And in that way, we are changing our cycle. They comprehend things more rationally, and they cease to take the images of figurative language literally. That is true, because as more as we develop our intelligence, more we become rational. We are moving out of that state of mind where we, for centuries, were just always listening and saying yes, but not understanding. Within Spiritism especially, we are invited to think for ourselves, to develop our reasoning in an individual basis, because we are unique beings in the universe. The most enlightened reasoning teaches us that the soul is an entirely spiritual being and that it cannot be affected by impressions that act only upon matter. However, it does not follow that it is free of suffering or that it is not punished for its wrongdoing. What do we understand here, if we were to say our understanding? Spiritual being, and that it cannot be affected by impressions that act only on the matter. As I just said, as more as we evolve spiritually, even if we go through experience, through the laws of cause and effect in the universe, if someone kills a physical body, we know that we are not dead, we know that we carry on our life, and we understand it. And also understanding that whatever wrong we do as learners, we will naturally attract experiences to redo it. It's not punished. I don't refrain because the words have been used on that period, on that epoch, but is re-education, learning to do the experiences in a different way. Always more and more towards a loving, fraternal way, as we are all children of God, brothers and sisters in humanity. Therefore, as more as we expand our hearts and minds, it actually repulses us just to think to kill someone. That is part of the evolution of the spirit.
This one, lessons involved, vibration is much faster than something of the lower nature cannot enter final vibration.
Precisely.
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 So either be transformed or be held.
Yeah, precisely.
So it's a natural state.
Yeah.
Being.
Yeah. As much as we will evolve, really, we become more and more, we contact more with our natural way of being, which in essence is goodness, is love, is light, and is peace. It's almost like an onion. We are taking away the, let's say, the invalid belief systems that we accepted throughout our evolution. And then still in the question 973, that we carry on. Spirit communications are meant to show us the future state of the soul, no longer as a matter of theory, but as a reality. They place before us all the vicissitudes of life beyond the grave, but at the same time, they also show us that they are the perfectly logical consequences of the terrestrial life. Let's explore this first part. How do we understand it? Spirit communications means those who already departed and those who are coming back to teach us how, in which state of mind or which state of consciousness they find themselves once they free from the physical body. So they come to tell us there is no such a thing as death, as an end. There is only the transition from freeing from the physical body, but we carry on alive, and we will wake up, spiritually speaking, exactly as we are here, psychologically and emotionally. And that means not in terms of awaiting suffering or condemnation, but it's just the law of cause and effect. If we end up being in a situation where we are in a challenging situation, let's always look around, because there are enlightened beings everywhere, dear ones who love us, who are aiming to help us as long as we become aware of that. So no one is alone in no space. They place before us all the vicissitudes of life beyond the grave. What do we understand by that? What is vicissitude of life? The difficulties, the challenges, could we say that? When we say they place before us all the vicissitudes of life beyond the grave, but at the same time, they also show us that they are the perfectly logical consequences of the terrestrial life. That means that they are showing us that whatever we went through, vicissitudes are the challenges, are the difficulties that we are having as learners on earth. Once we free ourselves from the physical body, a lot of things is different because our perception changes. For instance, which kind of vicissitude do we have here while we are on earth? Let's say, I need to work, so I don't have a car, I need to wake up every day and take the bus, take the train for me to go to work. That is a challenging moment for me. But once I free myself from the physical body, that experience ended. The only thing that I take with me, how I engage with that experience psychologically, emotionally. If I complained, then I reinforce my own shadows or imperfections. If I accept the experiences only as a methodology of learning, and then I'm fortifying myself in relation to the strengths or the potentials from the soul level onwards.
I think as well, same way you can walk or catch a car, you can also teleport if the intelligence is sitting.
Yeah?
So this is a faculty which you can exercise anyone.
Yes, that's what we can exercise. It's correct. And then they carry on. Although divested of the fantastic accoutrements created by the human imagination, they are nonetheless painful for those who have made a bad use of their faculties. So how do we understand that from a spiritual perspective? Still, we are reflecting once we free ourselves from the physical body. What comes to our mind saying? Although divested of the fantastic accoutrements created by human imagination, they are nonetheless painful for those who have made a bad use of their faculties.
I think in reflection, maybe come understand that you may see that your reactions towards the life experiences are not in line with love.
Precisely, correct? The diversity of such consequences is infinite, but may be generally summed up in the fact that each soul is punished for its specific sins. So the diversity of such consequences means we are all unique beings in the universe, and we, within our uniqueness, experience the experiences in a unique way. Therefore, the diversity is infinite. The consequences, therefore, as well. But again, the punishment, the education or the experiences as a consequence of our choices, that will be necessary for each one of us to redo whatever we haven't learned in relation to love is well said. Because in the end of the day, when we talk about re-education or learning in our progress evolution process, means that we are all learning to love. Because once we learn more and more, we will free ourselves from committing evil or crimes or these cross experiences that bring so much pain in our learning process. Some are punished by the same incessant sight of the evil they committed. Others by regret, fear, shame, doubt, loneliness, darkness, and separation from those who are dear to them, etc. What comes to our minds here?
The effects are not always obvious.
The effects are not always obvious.
Someone may do something bad and they seem to have a good time.
Yeah,
There's
good.
somewhere
Good. So, well said. So we may choose to do the wrong and may feel that's okay. We are quite happy temporarily, but it brings consequences. Later on, we will be dealing with those limitations that we choose to hold. As much as they say, by regret, that is usually when the spirit becomes aware out of the physical body and realizes what they did or what we did, and then we say, oh my God, why did I behave again in that way? Why did I harm myself in harming others? But even if that happens, we can ask for a different possibility and continue to learn. Fear is quite often also part when we transgress the law of love and we bring the law of love within, and if we go against, that brings limitations. Quite often we may come back in the next existence, be quite fearful in certain situations, which actually is the inner feedback of what we did, and it's almost like a break in helping us to redirect our minds and hearts and attitudes and behaviors. Is that making sense to you? Shame is also, that is quite, for some people maybe quite unconscious, for other people it can be quite conscious, depending the intensity of what we did in the past and what our purpose is in this new existence. For some people it can be quite intense, and then therapy will help a lot them to understand themselves in free from shame, in developing humbleness and self-acceptance and self-love as learners in the universe. Doubt, that again, when we use intelligence in the wrong way and manipulate people or situations, as temporarily we may laugh and think it's okay, but sooner or later we created limitations in ourselves and we may come back in the next existence and we may be full of doubts. Now we need to learn to use the free will in a correct way so that we can develop our intelligence rightfully. Loneliness, that is quite often that happens again, and that is quite conscious, because it's almost like that we bring the experience on the physical level so strongly that we are reminded. We may not be aware on the conscious level, but the reality exists on the unconscious level. So we don't know the reasons why I feel so lonely. I may even be in a partnership or in a marriage or with friends, but internally I may have these feelings of loneliness, because I have been in relationships or with people and I disrespected them, I wasn't honest, or whatever happens. So I come back with this internal reality, for me constant to be reminded to choose to be now correct, just, good, and in relating in a friendly way with people. In that way, we are diminishing that sense of loneliness. Because loneliness is not just felt by people who are not in partnership or relationships. Some people may be in a crowd and may feel quite lonely internally. Darkness and separation. Darkness is the heaviness that sometimes we bring. People don't know why. If they analyze their lives rationally or objectively, I have a good house, I have a good family, I have a good partner, everything is okay, I have a good job, but yet internally I feel this heaviness, I feel this uncomfortableness. Again, it comes from the unconscious level, on restores my wrong choices in past experiences. Is that okay? Yeah. From those who are dear to them. Separation. Separation, if we, through our experiences, are becoming very attached to people, and attachment talks more of selfishness, then we may also go through a temporary situation and learn to become more independent, psychological and emotional. learning to love ourselves and others, the real love, or say love, which is in an infantile, adolescence, and mature love. But when we are still in the infantile and adolescence, we become attached through selfishness or whatever. Therefore, we become very insecure, and therefore, when it comes to time of separation, we may suffer temporarily. But if we mature ourselves internally and conquer the understanding that no one belongs to each other and real love is inner freedom, then we free ourselves from selfishness because we are developing more altruism, more fraternity, and in that way it becomes easier when it's time for the other to depart or us to depart in their lives. Does that make sense? Anything else? Otherwise, we carry on now on the question 974. Would you like to read it for us, please?
Where does the doctrine of eternal fire come from?
Okay, let's explore the question. This is quite short. How do we understand the question? What was perhaps behind Allan Kardec's mind when he raised that question to the Enlightened Spirits? Why did he ask that under the chapter Hopes and Consolations, the nature of future joys and sorrows? Where does the doctrine of eternal fire come from? Do we still have this theory on earth these days? Do we still have the eternal fire? You burn forever in heaven? No, in hell? In heaven? In hell? I'm confusing. We still have that?
Hell.
Yes, the hell. So the theory, when they refer to that, is that. It's helping. He's raising different questions for us to really clear our minds that doesn't exist. Let's see what the Enlightened Spirits are saying. An image taken as reality, like so many others. An image. And as we have been much more ignorant in the past, we haven't been stimulated much to think for ourselves. We heard something or we read something, we took that as reality. And now we are here, they condition our minds, ourselves, incarnates, and also those in the spirit who are with us. There is no need to be fearful that we will burn forever in hell. That does not exist as we are learning here. It has been an image that we took as reality. And now we are freeing our minds and hearts for that. God is love, therefore the love is everywhere where we may be temporarily in our pathway of evolution.
I think when we are going through suffering, we can say it is like fire. But the fire, so there is an internal thing, but that's internal fire to transmute the energy. So in some ways, there is a sort of a truth to it, but not the way it's understood. It's projected outwards into a hell which doesn't exist.
Yes.
There is a fire in your heart.
Yes.
Gold, you don't get gold without fire.
Yes. But I think here what they're referring, if you follow the sequence of the question, it is referring to the doctrine of eternal suffering, as we say. And that is what the Enlightened Spirits help humanity to free, because that causes a lot of torture and suffering. Once the spirit die, because they have the belief system, we helped already a lot through the mediumship work. When they come, let's say in the Catholic belief system, they believe, I will die, I will burn forever in fire. They really become scared. And when you help them to become aware, oh my God, then I'm in hell because it's suffering. I'm suffering. But the suffering is internal through the torture of their own belief systems. When you help them to perceive, look around, you are not in a fire. Look where you are. We help them to see, and then it's almost like a relief that they feel internally. But I can see what you mean, which is the psychological emotion process more internally.
I think as well, like it said earlier, when the spirit or someone feels condemned for life, then they can react badly to fear, to something naughty or out.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's anywhere, I might as well just be like this. So I think to make anyone aware that it's not condemned for life, there is always hope.
This is hope and consolation is the chapter. And I think for me, it is very important that we reflect ourselves and all of those who are with us here studying. Doesn't matter what we did already in the past as learners, in life. God is love and does not blame ourselves or is there condemning us. We all are invited to learn in a different way what we weren't able previously. And that is quite consoling and hopeful for every heart, everywhere. So now then we move on a question 974.8. Andrea, would you like to read it for us?
But couldn't this fear lead to a good result?
Good result, yes. Remember the previous question that we went through? Where does the doctrine of eternal fire come from? Remember that we learned is an image taken from reality. And now Allan Kardec wasn't satisfied yet because of all belief systems, and still today, he enters from a different angle and raises the question, but couldn't this fear lead to a good result? How do we understand this question now? I wonder, why did he raise that question? Why was he trying to help us to understand through the answer of the Enlightened Spirits? Do we have an idea?
Could make you question yourself.
Sorry, could you make me ask a question?
Yourself. Fear, make you question yourself.
So the fear, I wonder, before we go through, if that would be referring to, as I mentioned previously, like a break, that I can reflect, that I can think, or may not just follow my impulses. Let's see what we learn here by the Enlightened Spirits. They say, see yourself whether or not it restrains even those who teach it. If you teach things that reason will later reject, you produce an impression that will be neither durable nor healthy. So what do we learn now here? Is it valuable to put fear on people's lives in teaching about life? Is that helpful? Is that helping us to feel console and hope within?
I would say it's a yes and no, because you can say it's about love, you teach about love, and the fear is transmuted. But sometimes when people have fear, they want to know the nature of the fear. So if you elaborate the nature of the fear out of love, then that can also help them move forward. So it's a yes and no. I don't know how he wants to ask, but for me it's not.
I think I can really empathize on what you're saying, but for me, what he's referring here is because in different times, and still today in some spiritual pathway, we may teach, or we teach already people, well, if you do this, you will end up in hell forever. So I create fear in people, and we went through, and a lot of us sometimes, even in Spiritism, we may bring those fears within because we went through this learning. I think the question is here. And then they say, well, is that helping? No, it doesn't help, because that does not correspond to the rational thinking. Is that making sense?
Doctors also do that sometimes. If you don't take this medicine, you will die.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's, it's filtered through in many different ways.
And yes, sometimes people are with a doctor, almost like dying, and the doctor says, well, if you don't stop smoking, then you will die. Well, then we carry on anyway. And then the guy, for some sort, doesn't die. But some people, it doesn't help. What helps is to explain in a loving way the cause and consequences, and especially understanding there is no such a thing that you, if you do wrong, if you commit a crime, or whatever you did, the worst scenario that you can imagine, that you will never move forward in life, that you will never be supported through love that comes from God. That is wrong. God is love, loves us all. Of course, we go through challenging experiences, but still they are moved on a profound way through the love of God, because everything follows God's guidance. Is that
Our nature is love, so we can never be lost.
Precisely. But when we have the understanding, which you already have, or I have, or we have, but when we haven't reached that level, let's say we are like children in terms of our intelligence, everything makes us fearful and scary. But as more as we learn, as more as we understand, more we are in control of the natural laws through our understanding, not only intellectual, but also emotional. And that the fear vanishes. Even if we did wrong, we don't need to waste our time in blaming ourselves. We just forgive ourselves as learner. What can I learn from this experience? Move on and do it different the next time around. That is all what we need to learn. Now, if we move forward on question 974, 8 is still the answer. Incapable of translating the nature of those sufferings into their own language, humans have not found a more forceful comparison for such sufferings than fire, which represents the cruelest torture possible and is the symbol of the most potent action. It is for this reason that the belief in eternal fire may be traced back to earliest antiquity, and modern cultures have inherited from their ancestors. Furthermore, it is for this reason that in their figurative language they speak of fiery passions, burning with love, burning with jealousy, etc. I wonder if you are now reaching what you presented previously, isn't it? Which is an eternal reality. Or what would you take from here? The first part is helping us to understand our limitation in translating through our core languages. Sometimes we have fire again. Comparison with such sufferings than fire, as you previously said, could be seen in a positive way or could be seen in a negative way. It is in a negative way from an immature level, from the ego state of mind, that could be perceived as a very tense and negative experience. If we evolve and we go through very challenging and profound renovations internally, the fire could be seen as renovation, as cleansing, as purification, as detoxing.
It's in the Bible as well, isn't it? Before the cleansing comes to fire.
Yeah, yes, precisely. Referring to that, isn't it? They gave the example here, fiery passions, burning with love. Do we still have these examples? Burning with love. We go and kill each other because we love each other. What a lie. That is the burning with love, which means the incorrect way of what we understand about love. Because when we learn to love sincerely, we will not burn with love. We will be free within and therefore without. Burning with jealousy. Well, if we are really suffering from this shortcoming, that is really disturbing internally. We won't have peace in mind unless we sort our false illusions, we overcome them. And so many other examples.
It seems that everything has a twofold nature. In duality, you can look at the same thing, but from your perspective, understand differently.
Yes.
So it has something to offer you,
Yes.
but at the same time not.
Yes.
So it's good to sort of see that
Yes.
as a holistic.
Precisely. Even passions. If you may not study way here, passions, I may think about all the passions are wrong. No. The cause of the roots of the passions has been given by God to every one of us. They are rooted in the drive of life. But where we are now in our evolution, depending where I am, I can use that in a negative way against me because it comes from my immaturity, from the ego state of mind, or my understanding is already more broadened and I may use it in terms of promoting my own evolution. Is that making sense? Yeah. Question 975. Read it for us, please.
How do low order spirits comprehend the happiness of the morally upright?
How do we understand this question if we were to reframe it according to our own words? To low order spirits comprehend the happiness of the morally upright? First thing, what comes to our minds when we read this question? The scale of evolution, correct? Where we go through different scales of understanding life. When we say low order, are all of us who are pretty much in the primitive state, let's say. And Earth still is a primitive school for the spirits. Do those spirits comprehend happiness of the morally upright? What do we understand about morally upright? What comes to our minds? Living in line with nature, living in line with the natural laws, or would say morally upright, those in the scale of evolution who are more higher already will conquer a higher level of understanding, a higher level of being within the natural laws of life. Okay, so if I'm a low order spirit, let's imagine, can I understand what means happiness to a higher evolved spirit? Higher morally, because I can be higher intellectual, I mean moral. Can I comprehend?
To live it.
I have to leave it to now. Because if I'm a lower order, and what predominates in mind, let's say, psyche in terms of tendencies, values, and belief systems is much more related to the materialistic viewpoint or the passions on the ego level, how can I understand that a higher being who is much more evolved than I am, morally speaking, can be happy in just helping others? If I still live in a very selfish way, just caring about myself, I cannot understand that. But when we go through the experience, through the law of evolution, we leave it and then we activate these potentials, then we feel it. That it becomes part of us. Yeah? Let's see then what the Enlightened Spirits are telling us. They say, yes, and that is what tortures them. They understand that they are deprived of it due to their own fault. That is why the spirit, freed from matter, aspires to a new corporeal existence. It knows that each existence it will employ, if well employed, will shorten the duration of that torment. With that in mind, it chooses the trial that it will expiate its wrongs. You must remember that the spirit suffers for all the wrong it has done, or which it has intentionally caused, but for all the good that it might have done, but did not, and for all the harm that resulted from the good it failed to do. So what comes to our minds now here?
I think the question when it says comprehend, it's more referring to recognizing that this is possible rather than really feeling the happiness that someone feels. Because it says yes, but because they recognize that. So it wouldn't say yes if it wasn't recognized at a certain level, but it doesn't mean anything deeper than that. So I think he was, when comprehend, he was not implying the full depth of the understanding.
No, they can see, for instance, they can feel that others who are more evolved or took the right decision, that they are more peaceful, they are calmer, they are whatever. And that touches sometimes us if we are more in the selfish level, but it doesn't mean that they cannot achieve that as well. So do we have here different ways when they say towards the end, you must remember that the spirit suffers for all the wrong it has done or which it has intentionally caused. That is one of the reasons, can we see, why we suffer. Then the other one is, for all the good that it may have done, but did not do. How do we understand that second part? How would we translate that? All the possibilities that life invites us for us to do good and we did not do, then we will also suffer once we free ourselves from the physical body. We understand life from a different perspective. Why didn't I put effort into that and went on doing that I can help incorporate in the whole? That brings also conflicts for the spirit. Although now I may not notice it, but later on, yes. And for all the harm that resulted from the good, it failed to do. So there are three aspects in us here. Is that making sense? Very important to pay attention. Surely all of us in the state where we are, we don't want anymore intentionally to do wrong and harm to others. We choose also now to be more aware, more attentive, that we don't waste time and possibilities and opportunities to help the work of the Buddhist spirits to do good, because that brings remorse quite often later on. And for all the harm that resulted from the good that it failed to do. We want to be instrument of goodness. Surely, we all have to, it's not the right word, fight, but we need to be vigilant with our old habits. Our old habits, our unconscious habits are connected quite often with also spirits, our brothers and sisters in humanity, who still want us to do wrong, not to do good that we could do, to be absent in the possibilities that we could be promoting good, to be with the good spirits. We need to be attentive that we don't follow their inspiration, that we follow the inspiration of the enlightened beings of the good ones, of those who are promoting the good for everyone. And that we can do wherever we are, at home, in the streets, in our communities, in any moment. As long as we become more aware, as less aware we are, then the opportunities pass and we don't learn and we don't help, and later on we may regret for those moments. Now, as we're coming to the end today, as students as we are in our study, reflecting about the law of hopes and consolations, maybe finish it with our hearts full of joy for these unique moments and opportunities and possibilities that life is extending to every and each one of us. As loving beings as we all are, doesn't matter what we did already. What matters is that we may comprehend that we have been created by God with love in order for us to learn to love. That we all are essential beings of love, beings of light, beings of goodness. May the blessings of the superior beings, the enlightened spirits, fall upon every and each one of us here, strengthening us, so that we may follow our pathway, as incarnates or disincarnates, with more joy in our hearts, with more determination towards our responsibility, understanding that it's the inner choice to become better today as yesterday, and tomorrow better than today, freeing ourselves from guilt, from shame or blame, and choosing best in being good in our minds, our hearts, in our ways of being, today and always. So be.